He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This one's wife. Hey, Leecher, leave those Nigerians alone. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Joanna Williams writes in something called Spiked. This one's wife should leave those poor Nigerians alone. This one's wife returned home last week, not to her children and chickens in Monte Shitshow, California, but to Nigeria, a country where she has never lived, never before visited, and has no known living relatives. And yet, accompanied by Prince Harry on a royal tour in all but name, this one's wife thanked Nigerians for welcoming me home. Flattery, revision of history. It turns out that several years ago, the Duchess of Sussex took a genealogy test that gave her a breakdown of her ancestry. Apparently, she is 43% Nigerian. For most people, this would be the basis of a fun anecdote and not much more. As Scientific American notes, we all have thousands of ancestors, and our family trees become matted webs as we go back in time, which means that before long, our ancestors become everyone's ancestors. Clearly, there is something other than supposed familial ties that attracted this one's wife and Harry to Nigeria. On this latest trip, the couple were treated like actual royalty for once, with red carpets, posh receptions, and waving crowds. The plebs in Blighty might roll their eyes at this one's wife's overpriced jam business, but in Nigeria she was honoured with royal titles, residual benefit. She really is a princess, no matter what her critics say. Perhaps the only thing more important to this one's wife than being perceived as a princess is being perceived as a victim. Pausing there, of course, the point when it comes to the issue of victimhood is this is central to the way that this one's wife behaves. Being African American, part of it is not knowing so much about your lineage or background, where you come from specifically, she declared during her Nigerian visit. What this one's wife is driving at here is the legacy of the Atlantic slave trade. They uprooted millions of African men, women and children and made it impossible for those captured to maintain contact with their homeland or relatives. But for Monte Shitshow's lifestyle queen to link herself to the barbaric history of slavery neatly overlooks her present privilege and fabulous wealth. Lucky this one's wife benefited not just from her royal marriage, but also, presumably, from her parents going to great lengths to make sure their daughter could follow her ambitions. Now she chooses to play act as the victim, that's her narcissism, rather than acknowledge the privilege her parents handed down to her. The whole Nigerian not royal tour has given us the kind of hilarious and toe-curling cringe we have come to expect from the Sussexes. Even Harry has taken to referring to the Nigerian people as his in-laws, probably instructed to do so by this one's wife. But their latest escapade is worth reflecting on for what it tells us about the current moment. It shows us that identity is no longer seen as something grounded in the reality of our existence and shaped through our daily endeavours. Rather, it is something we can uncover by spitting into a test tube. This is not a self we create, but a self we get sent via a lab report. Family has similarly been redefined. It is not people we are related to, who we build relationships with through rough and smooth over the course of our lives. Instead, it is the complete strangers we meet one day and will likely never see again. As far as this one's wife is concerned, identity and family are defined as whatever it most convenient for her at the time. Pausing there, that's entirely accurate, because of course it's all about in the moment. What matters in the moment for the purposes of the assertion of control and drawing of fuel. This one's wife might call Nigeria her country, but she does not want to be a Nigerian in Nigeria, where she could no doubt lead a nice, if quiet, life. Instead, this one's wife wants to be a Nigerian in California. Her relationship is not with the reality of Nigeria today, but with an imagined past. She wants the world to know she may be a princess, but she is also a victim. If anyone is the victim here, it is the Nigerians. Harry and this one's wife used the trip to announce that their Archwell Foundation would help fund school supplies and menstrual products in Nigeria. But seeing as Archwell was recently labelled delinquent by the US charity regulator, can we really be sure Nigerians will benefit? Worse still, this one's wife and Harry brought their mental health crusade in American-style therapy speak to Nigeria. Addressing a captive audience of school children, Harry asked, "If you see your friend in your class not smiling, what are you going to do? Are you going to check in with them? Are you going to ask them if they're okay? It's okay not to be okay." This one's wife, clearly impressed, swooned, "Do you see why I married him? He's so smart." If Harry really had as many brain cells as this one's wife imagines, he would know that this kind of talk does far more harm than good. We see across the Western world that constantly asking children about their emotional states creates the very problems mental health advocates claim to want to prevent. As Abigail Schreier points out in her excellent book Bad Therapy, getting children to play shrink and routinely ask each other how they are feeling pushes them to focus their attention inwards rather than out into the world. It's already making young people sicker, sadder, and more afraid to grow up, she writes. The last thing Nigeria needs is a victim princess and her clueless husband introducing the nation's children to cod psychology. Nigeria's leaders need to shut the door on this one's wife, Harry, and all that they represent. This demonstrates once again the cluelessness of both Harry and this one's wife. That this one's wife wants to be seen as a victim vis-a-vis the slave trade, but also wants to be seen as going there and doing good. And yet they come out with their fridge magnet platitudes. And it shows what a dimwit she is, as she believes that the words from another dimwit, her husband, demonstrate that he's smart. No wonder that the columnist reached the conclusion that the Nigerians ought to be left alone from this woman that leeches off them. Once again, another individual that sees straight through the behaviour of the Sussexes identifies that it's all about her victimhood and what Nigeria can do for her, how she has no real affiliation with that country, yet of course, as you know, as her repeated chameleon-like behaviour, she behaves as if she is from Nigeria, making a fool of herself once again. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.